In this video, I'm going to show you how to install a hot water expansion tank, also known as a thermal expansion tank, and why you may or may not need one. And if you're new to this channel, my name's Josh. This channel is all about DIY to save a ton of money. So be sure to subscribe, ring that bell so you get a notification every time I release a new video, and hammer that like button for me. That's all I ask in return for making this video. So we got a lot to go over today, so let's get started. I made a video a while back installing this hot water tank. A couple people mentioned in the comments that I should install what's called a hot water expansion tank or thermal expansion tank. And in my area, when I built this house, it was not code at the time. And I'm not sure if it is now or not, but there's a couple reasons why I'm going to add it to this system. And if we take a look here, this is where an expansion tank is usually positioned on a T-piece. Then it's right here, right above the cold water. So that way, it's all in this closed system with the cold water. And if you notice this valve here, this is your TP valve. It's a pressure release, temperature pressure release valve. So whenever you have a buildup of pressure, you're going to have water come out of this valve and into your drain pan or crawl space or basement. And that way, the pressure in the enclosed system does not get too great to cause burst pipe fittings or burst pipes or damage your hot water tank, etc. So we need to find a way to eliminate that problem, and that is where the expansion tank comes into play, because it is charged with PSI, pressure, and that's just simple air pressure. So whenever there's a fluctuation in pressure, let's say this hot water tank builds up pressure because the water gets warm and expands, and that causes a build-up pressure in your closed water system. So you need somewhere for that pressure to go, and I'm going to explain why this may or may not be something you need. For instance, my dad, he lives in a house that has well water, and he has a bladder for his pressure tank, and his hot water tank rarely has any issues with water coming out of this TP valve. So this is something that I had to do, because let me show you below what I had happen. If you remember from my hot water tank installation video, and if you haven't seen it, I'll put a link to it in the description below so you can watch it first. But you remember I installed this drain pan, and this is going to be important because it catches water that comes out of this pressure release valve. And this is something that is usually ran into a crawl space or basement, but here it catches it in the pan, then it collects in the pan, then goes down to the crawl space or basement from there, and then out the house. And I came in here about a week ago and noticed there was about a ½ inch of water in this pan. So it was doing its job catching the water, but I had to figure out what was going on. So it's gotten really cold here in the past month, and I'm assuming that this cold water came in, and once it got warmed up, it got extra expanded because it was so cold coming in initially. So water kept pushing out of this bottom pipe, and you can see where it's been dripping here a little bit since then. So it's very important that I install a thermal expansion tank to get rid of that problem. Now, like I mentioned before, my dad's on a well, and he has a pressure tank, so that's going to push the water through the house, and it actually absorbs a little more of that pressure. So that's why he never really has had an issue with that. To fix this problem, I'm going to install the thermal expansion tank in line with my cold water coming into this hot water tank. I'm going to show you an easy way I'm going to do it. This is a pressure tank. This is different than an expansion tank. This is used in conjunction with a well pump in order to charge your water to push it through your house. And if you want to see a video on how to install one of these, check out a video link in the description below. One way I can install this tank in line would be to simply install the T-piece here, and then this would screw onto the T-piece on one side, then this would thread onto the top like so. And that is a very easy way to do this, but I don't want to undo all this. I already have it all set and it all looks good and it's functioning fine. So I'm going to go into the crawl space and install this inline with the water line coming into this tank. And again, you make sure this is installed on the cold side and not the hot side. And these are good for about 7 years, so you do got to switch these out eventually. But in the meantime, it's important that there is one in line whenever you're having issues like this. Here's the expansion tank I'll be installing. This is a 2-gallon expansion tank, and it's going to be suitable for my 50-gallon hot water tank. And if I had a bigger tank, let's say 80-gallon hot water tank, I'd want to put in around a 5-gallon expansion tank. And this expansion tank is already pre-charged at 40 PSI, so I don't have to add pressure to it. And this is something that's going to install directly in line on the 3/4 inch side of the water lines coming into the hot water tank, and we got the threads here that are male. So we need a female threaded connection. The maximum PSI should only be about 150 placed into this tank, so your water pressure that's in your lines shouldn't exceed that to use this tank. And also, I got this off Amazon. This is just a drop ear with a female 3/4 inch threaded adapter, and then I have PEX B. So I have PEX B adapters on each side to go right in line with my 3/4 inch water line. And if you have PEX A, you'd want to get one with the PEX A ends, or if you have CPVC, you want to get one to adapt to CPVC. And I'll put a link description below to this tank and to this adapter so you can check it out for yourself. I'm first going to install Teff tape going clockwise around the male threads. And I just went around about 5 or 6 times or so. I'm now going to place joint compound, or some people call this pipe dope, around these as well. Some people would say this is overkill to add this when you're using this, but I'd like to be overkill than underkill. Before the next step, I'm going to shut the main water supply line off to the house and shut the supply line going to the hot water tank off. And I'm also going to crack a faucet or outside spigot to let the pressure out of the lines. Now that the water's shut off, here's the water line going up to the hot water tank here. And this is the hot water coming out of the tank. I'm going to place the expansion tank right here. So I'm actually going to screw it right to this floor joist. So I'm going to pop off this bracket that's holding this pipe clamp, and then I'm going to cut my pipe right here now that the water is shut off. Very important, make sure your water is shut off just like you see me do. I'm going to cut the PEX pipe right here with my pipe cutter. And you want to catch this water into a bucket if you can. Now that I have a cut in the pipe, I have plenty of room for movement here, so I'm not too worried about taking a section out to allow for the drop ear. And I got 2 crimp rings I'm going to place on each opened end of the pipe. Since this is PEX B, I'm now going to place the drop ear in line, and we're going to space these about 1/8 inch from the end and crimp it on. Now I'm going to place a screw in each side of the drop ear to hold it to the floor joist. With the drop ear in place, we're going to thread the expansion tank right into this drop ear. We're now in line with our water line going up to the hot water tank, so we can now turn the water back on and check for leaks. I turned the main water shutoff valve back to on, and I'm now going to turn this back to on to allow water to come back into the hot water tank. And if you'd like to see how I installed this hot water tank, check out this video. It'll help you out.